Welcome to the Growth Boss Podcast, where we seek out the secrets to high-performing campaigns from some of the smartest marketers in the world. I'm your host, Jared Smith. Today I have Joey Bidner with me, and he's going to teach us how to optimize your product feed for Google Shopping Mastery. Joey is a Google Ads expert who helps businesses worldwide generate leads and sales through search, shopping, display, YouTube, and remarketing. Joey, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So I'm really excited for this episode because we have not talked about shopping feeds yet, but I know being an e-commerce business owner that it can make a world of a difference for your campaigns and for SEO as well. So really excited to dive in. But for those who are not familiar with product feeds, kind of how they work for e-commerce brands, would you mind maybe giving people a little bit of an overview of that first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to advertising e-commerce on Google, we don't have keywords to tell Google how to match our products to relevant queries, right? And that's where the product feed steps in. Google uses this, it's essentially like a big sheet of your products that are stored in Google Merchant Center, and it uses the data there to match our product to query. So it's in your account's best interest to make sure that that feed is optimized so the system can read all the information about your products to get those high quality searches.
So what are some of the more common problems that you're seeing, especially with Shopify sites these days? I'm sure most people are on Shopify. I know we're on Shopify. It's worked very well for us. What are some of the most common mistakes you see business owners making?
Yeah, the big one that I see all the time when I'm doing coaching calls and when I inherit a new account is Shopify does a really great job at making it easy to integrate your products to Merchant Center for your product feed. It's more or less a one button click, your products are there and you can just get rolling. And that's where we reach the first issue, because there are a number of fields that are not really optimizable through this integration, what they call the content API, but also of the fields that are optimizable through this integration, it's not quite clear right out of the gate that you should be paying attention to it. So I see it all the time. Business owners will connect their accounts. They think their feed is rightly optimized, but it's frankly a big mess because it just was assumed that it's right from the get-go. So there's a few important things that I'm going to mention that every business owner using Shopify with this integration should look at, as well as some other options that are outside of this direct integration that you can use for more advanced optimization of the product feed.
Okay, very good. And should a business owner be optimizing every single field in the product feed, or are there certain ones that matter more than others? I know on the SEO side of things, you've got, your H1 tags, your description tags, different parts of the page that are more important. Not everything is, equally weighted. Is the same true, with product feeds?
Yeah, you can get easily overwhelmed by all the features that you will, all the columns that you'll see that you can fill in a product feed. But really, it comes down to a few key fields that you're going to really want to pay attention to, and then the rest falls into place when it's necessary. So I want to identify more or less 5 of the really important fields.
Okay, what are those?
So first one, it's the most obvious, which is title. Okay, the title is where Google gets its first real indicator of what your product is and how to match it to queries. Now, the first problem that you often see is the direct title of a product on your store might be sent as the title for your product in Merchant Center. And that's a big problem because the title that you see on a website is not optimized for Google Ads. And that's because the title should more or less contain all the key elements that accurately describe your product that you want to appear for those relevant searches. And there's even a few important things to consider depending on what type of product that you sell. So for example, I want to give 2 examples, one being a product that other retailers sell and another of a product that is not sold by other retailers, that just your company produces. Now, in the example of a product that is sold by other retailers, let's say Nike shoes, you're going to want to have Nike in the title, obviously, because people are searching for Nike shoes. You're going to want to have the model of the shoe in the title because people are searching for specific models. You're going to want to also have the material. Maybe it's got Gore-Tex. Maybe it's perforated. You're going to want to have the style of shoe. Is it a cross trainer? You're going to want to have the color of the shoe. And all these things don't really fit in the title of your web store. You wouldn't have this long title on your web store. You're just going to have the brand and maybe the model. That is not an optimized title. You have 150 characters for a product title, and I encourage everybody to use those character counts because that's how Google is going to be able to match you to, not only the specific product that you're selling, but also higher funnel searches. If somebody's just searching for a Gore-Tex cross trainer, right? You want that in your title so Google can make that match.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Yep, go ahead.
Now, there's another side of it is where if you sell a product that other retailers don't sell, this is where I see a lot of mistakes where a lot of retailers will put their brand name and their product in the title. That's the first mistake because you want that title to be rich with all the identifiers so you can show up for more searches for people who don't know you yet, right? Your brand is already going to be on the ad. You don't need your brand name in the title. So I'll give you an example. I have a client that makes high-end patio umbrellas. They are the manufacturer of this product. So the first part of our title is cantilever patio umbrella. That's the type of umbrella. The second part of the title is wind resistant because people search for wind resistant patio umbrellas. Then we go into the fabric type, the color, and that is an optimized title for a custom product.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I was reading something yesterday, I think on X, from a guy who is saying that you should upload multiple product feeds. And with each product feed, hit on a different kind of pain point that your customer's going through so that you can essentially own, all the shopping ads with these different product feeds. Is that something that's useful or is that, spammy? Where does that fit on the spectrum?
So the only problem with that is one, it dilutes your data. So I have heard of those strategies before. I've tried them, frankly, and certain times I actually got feeds rejected because Google kind of catches on to it. And you're supposed to only have one primary product feed. But the problem with that as well is Google does its best job when it has as much data as it can on an individual product. And by splitting your feed into multiple feeds, it's going to dilute your data. And you want that data stored at the product level in as much consolidation as possible. So yeah, I personally don't do that, split feed strategy, but I have heard it work for people before. So I shouldn't say it doesn't work, but it comes, it's like a hack that comes with the pain point.
Yeah. Makes sense. So once I get in there, I'm optimizing my feed. What are some of you mentioned Shopify has a direct integration. Does that always work well? I mean, I've heard of people using Google Sheets and some other, ways to kind of get things organized and uploaded. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, so when it comes to the Shopify integration, one thing I will mention is it doesn't have a lot of ability to customize your feed with a lot of granularity. And I'll get a little bit later into some examples of when we need that. But one thing that Shopify does have that relates to this product title problem we were talking about, where at the bottom of every Shopify product page, you have an SEO title and description. Now, in your Shopify connection point settings page, it gives you the option to use your SEO title and description instead of your product title. So that's the first setting that's often missed that everybody should look at. Because again, you don't want the titles on your website used for shopping. Switch to that SEO title and description, which again, by default isn't on. And if you haven't optimized for your SEO title and description, it's also going to help for your SEO, obviously, because that's what crawlers are looking at. When it comes to Google Sheets, that's the option that, I'll be honest, I never use because it requires the most manual heavy lifting. You have to manually write everything. And you're not going to get direct inventory connection, or you can, but you have to have a connected sheet and do exports. It becomes a big laborious nightmare, frankly.
Okay.
Yeah. So for when you want to have a more custom approach to managing your feed, I will always recommend a third-party management software. Now, before we go into that, though, I did want to still mention a few specific fields that are important, because once we understand the importance of a few more fields I want to mention, it will be a little bit easier to describe why we might want to use these third-party management softwares.
Okay. So talk to us about those fields.
Yeah. So firstly, Google product category and product type. These are two fields I want to mention side by side because they're often mixed up a lot, and they're really important not only for Google's ability to read your products, but also for our organization and our account structures. So Google product category is essentially our way to tell Google exactly what our product is. And Google has a predetermined list called the Google Ads taxonomy. That's a list of about 10,000 different product categories.
Okay.
And we are taking these specific categories and the way that they write them and say, my product is this. So if you sell patio umbrellas, you go to this taxonomy, you control find patio umbrellas and make sure it's in there. Now, when you do a Shopify direct upload, those are guessed. They are automatically populated based off of how the system reads your products. But a third-party management software, you could say with a rule, any product that's tagged with patio umbrellas, I want you to make the patio umbrella Google product category. Any product that's tagged with bases, patio umbrella bases, I want you to fill with patio umbrella bases. And they're very granular. You can get bolts for a snowboard on the Google products taxonomy. It's not general. It's super specific.
Yeah.
So that's the first example of when you'll want to use a third-party software. But I did also want to mention product type. This is easily one of the most important fields because it controls how you segment your campaigns. And it's often confused with Google product category. People think, oh, Google reads Google product category to understand what my product is. They must do the same thing for product type. But Google doesn't read product type. It doesn't look at it at all. Product type is simply used for us to organize our campaigns. So in the example of the patio umbrellas, I would say, I sell cantilever patio umbrellas. That's one product type. That's going to be one ad group. I sell tilt patio umbrellas. That's going to be a separate product type. That's going to be a separate ad group, and so on and so forth.
Got it. Okay, great. And how about tools? Again, tools make all of our lives easier. What sort of tools should we be looking at?
Yeah, so my favorite is DataFeedWatch. This has got the most granularity and ability to more or less fix any problem. That said, it's expensive. And it doesn't have the quickest adoption rate. Like, you really need to learn the language of this platform. It's difficult to understand. Took me a while to really get comfortable with it, but they do have great support. So I personally, for all of my larger clients, I always suggest DataFeedWatch. Simprosys is another one that is a little easier to adopt. It's much cheaper. It's like a fraction of the cost, and it's a little bit more plug and play. It does have more functionalities than the Shopify version by far, but less than DataFeedWatch. There are situations that I've been in where I have had to switch from Simprosys to DataFeedWatch because I needed more control. So those are the two that I would recommend if you need a third-party software.
And how do I know if I would need one? Again, I think about like the average e-commerce small business owner. They've got a couple SKUs. We've probably got, 50, 60 SKUs. And then you're probably working with brands that have, 10,000 SKUs or at least thousands. Which tool is good for those different types of business?
Yeah, so I always suggest the tools when they're really there to solve a problem. So for example, let's say you have a certain field that's not populating properly because of the way that you set up your website. That's when you want to use one of these tools because they are able to give you controls to fully control where the information is being sent from your website to Google Merchant Center. So I'll give you an example. We didn't talk yet about GTIN, but that is an important field that often runs into problems with e-commerce stores. So GTIN is more or less the SKU that a manufacturer gives you for a product. It's a globally recognized SKU, right? It's something, by the way, you always want to use if you sell products that other retailers sell, because it tells Google this is exactly what this product is. If it's the red size 9 Nike Air Max, the GTIN tells Google that's exactly what it is. Now, I have had situations before where a store will use their own SKUs and fill in the SKU field, right? Shopify has that option where you can generate your own barcodes.
Yep.
Now, if you put your own barcode in the barcode field and use the Shopify integration, it's going to send that barcode to your merchant center. And guess what it's going to do? It's going to disapprove the product.
Wow.
So you need a third-party software to say, don't pull the GTIN from that field. Either don't use it at all, or let me pull it from a different area of my website. It allows you to control where the information is coming and going. I also like to use it for more specific granular titles. You could make a rule that says, okay, I want you to use my SEO title for the beginning part of my title, but then I want you to grab my variant. I want you to grab any other field, to be honest, that's within your Shopify store. You could say this plus this equals my title. So you can get custom with your title, or you can add specific pieces of information to your titles based off of rules. So every product within this specific collection, I want the title to contain this after the SEO title. So you can just get nerdy.
Yeah. Love it. Now, as somebody who's probably done this many, many times, what are some other things that business owners need to be thinking about? Common mistakes, or just, things that everybody needs to be aware of to make sure they're setting up their company for success as it relates to these shopping feeds?
Yeah, I think what's really important is just giving Google as much information as possible about your products. That's really it. It's actually, product feed management is quite simple. It's just similar to SEO, you're trying to give the system as much information as possible. So I'll give you an example. When it comes to descriptions, right? We didn't get to talk about descriptions yet. We have up to 5,000 characters available for our descriptions in our product feed. So I say, fill that up. Use ChatGPT if you have to. Make a paragraph for every use case of the product. Because Google is going to read that information and match to queries that are not necessarily strictly the product name, right? People are getting into more information style searches. So when you give Google that information, that's what matters. But I find sticking to good titles, good descriptions, Google product category, and the GTIN, those are kind of like my big four, getting the best kind of search query matching.
Yeah. And I would imagine if you really fill out the description really, really well, again, giving Google more context to your products, it just allows them to expand your reach, probably lower your cost per click. Do you have any maybe examples that you can share where you were able to go in, adjust those descriptions, optimize some of these things, and the result that came from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example. Going back to the patio umbrella example I gave earlier, I mentioned that we put wind resistant in the title. So this wasn't something that we started with, right? We just kind of had the more classic, just the titles of just the product type, the color, the variants on there, right?
Yeah.
But then I did an n-gram analysis, and that's a type of analysis where you look at your search queries broken down into specific words. What specific words were in all my search queries that saw a high return, but maybe a low volume? And I noticed it was wind resistant. A lot of people buried in the long tail search terms typed wind resistant for wind resistant patio umbrellas, patios that are good in high wind. So we added it to our product titles. And then what we saw is wind resistant searches go up and the conversion rates with it. Right. So that simple little thing, right? I find that that's the real key to product feed management. It's not necessarily about trying to hack the system, duplicate the feed, and it's just get down to the simplicity of giving Google the information it needs.
100%. Makes a lot of sense. Joey, this has been great. For people that want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I like to post quite often about the things that I find, my strategies. I also have a YouTube channel called the Indie PPC Podcast, and reach out to me from my website, joeybidner.com.
Okay. Awesome. Last question before we go. When do you think ChatGPT is going to start putting some ads in their feed, in their tool?
I hope soon, man. I'm a big Google guy. Google, Microsoft ads are my wheelhouse, but I'm looking forward to a new platform to dabble in search. And to be honest, my take is that the first place that they're going to get these placements from is Microsoft ads, right? Microsoft is a part owner of OpenAI. They already have the network built, the platform built. So I think the first step is going to be through Microsoft ads and then maybe launch their own full platform down the road. But I'm hoping it's going to come soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for your time today.
My pleasure.